There's no better feeling than a personal win, and the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you do just that. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This is what you do when you've just found that statement handbag on eBay and you want to build an entire wardrobe around it. You start selling to keep buying. Yep, on eBay. Over that all-black everything phase? List it and buy all the color. Feeling more vintage than ever? It's out with the new and in with the pre-loved. Next thing you know, you've refreshed your wardrobe basically without spending a dime. Yeah, eBay, the place to buy and sell new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion.
The Volvo XC60 plug-in hybrid is about performance, not just on the road, but in life, where the only speed that matters is how fast you can slow down. Performance where it matters the most. Visit volvocars.com/US.
Hey there, Duke fans, and welcome to episode number 61 of DBR Bites. This is the Duke Basketball Roundup. We are here on Sunday, September 22nd, 2024. Duke football 4-0 after a 45-17 win over Middle Tennessee on the road. Another great victory for the Blue Devils. I'm Donald Wine. I'm your host for this episode. We're going to be talking football in this one. Programming note, we have a full ACC schedule reveal on Tuesday night. That's going to be on TV. Jason and I are going to break that down, hopefully in time for your Wednesday commute. But as I bring in Jason, you were back from the Jersey Shore, I believe. So how was the rest of the trip?
Yeah, back in Atlanta. It was very nice. After spending some time at the Jersey Shore, I went to Washington, where my sister and my sister-in-law both live. And I actually got to spend some time with an old buddy of mine, Kobe Dolan. Kobe's former roommate, lived on my hall freshman year. A good Duke friend. I hadn't seen him in a while, and it was great just to catch up. And actually, Kobe and a bunch of the other guys, friends of mine from the class of '89, I think we're going to get a suite for the Champions Classic, which is here in Atlanta, coming up in about a month or so. I want to say like November 12th, I believe, is the date for the Champions Classic here in Atlanta. Yep. And we have this big group chat, all of us class of '89 guys. And I sort of said, I think I can get a suite. And I was like, it'd be expensive. Who's in? And the flood of I'm in was like, wow. So
I mean, never turn down sweet life. That's what I've learned in my 41 years so far on this planet. Never turn down sweet life.
Let's be clear. We're paying for this.
Money sometimes is no object when it comes to sweet life, and sometimes it is. So you have to make that decision as you go. That will be really cool, Jason. And sorry I missed you. I am in Detroit for the weekend visiting some friends and family. But you arrived in DC and I was gone. So that's my bad. But I'm glad you had a good time. People who are also on the road, Duke football. Let's get to that. And I want to start with this. We have some headlines, or at least we got a series of headlines in from John Grantland. And there was a couple of them that I liked that I wanted to shout out. The first one is lightning strikes. Dalmalin and Thomas lead Duke to their 4th victory at Middle Tennessee. And then also bluer than blue. Blue Raiders, no match for Blue Devils, in lightning delayed beatdown at Middle Tennessee. Jason, we're going to start with the first quarter because the first quarter was absolutely wild. Middle Tennessee gets the ball to start the game. They have a 66-yard touchdown. We counter with a 71-yard touchdown pass. And then after that, our defense gets 3 fumbles, and we turn each of them into touchdowns. As 28-10 Duke at the end of the first quarter, and they didn't look back from there.
Yeah, exactly. And look, in a game like this against a team that you are physically dominant over, you want to physically dominate. And I think we saw Duke do that, especially on defense. I think once again, even though Duke put up a really nice point total in this game, look, we finally got off that 26-point magic number kind of thing.
We blew through. It only took one quarter. We blew through it.
Exactly. And it's good to see Duke putting up 40+ points. I mean, this is a big deal. But at the same time, you really want your defense to continue to perform the way Duke's defense has been performing. And they have been truly outstanding in every game this season. Look, I thought Star Thomas had a really nice game. There was one play, a big run early in the third quarter where he trucked through like two guys, just absolutely left them in his wake. It was put them both on their backsides. I really like that. But to me, the story of the game was the defense getting sacks, putting Middle Tennessee in second and long, third and long, all game long. We ended up with 6 sacks on this game, 12 tackles for loss. Those are big numbers for a defense. And the only big play, you mentioned the long touchdown run that Middle Tennessee had, like at the second play of the game. They got that because the referee tripped one of our safeties. I'm not sure if on the replay, one of the safeties is coming over to make the play, and suddenly he's fallen down because the referee was in the way and tripped him. But I love how the team bounced back from that play. And I want to shout out a couple defensive guys. Look, I know we're going to get into the offense. We're going to talk about a bunch of other guys, but 2 defensive guys, linebackers Alex Howard and Cameron Bergeron. Alex Howard, each had 8 tackles to lead the team on the game. Alex Howard also had 3 tackles for loss and a sack. And Cameron Bergeron had 2 tackles for loss and a sack, and he broke up a pass. Those 2 guys, linebackers, are hugely important in every aspect of the game. But their ability to our defensive line ties up the other team's offensive line, and then the linebackers, the guys who swoop in and knock guys back behind the line. They get in there and they get the sacks. And those 2 guys in the entire Duke defense, I thought, had an outstanding game. But, the bottom line was, Donald, that Middle Tennessee shot themselves in the foot early on and throughout this whole game. Roughing the kicker allowed Duke to have an extra long drive. They had the 3 fumbles in the first quarter that led to 21 Duke points. We scored a touchdown in each one of those. They had several untimely penalties. Middle Tennessee didn't play well enough to compete with the Power 5 team, and Duke put them in their place.
I also want to shout out with Alex Howard. He had one of the fumble recoveries in the first quarter. I also want to shout out Deshaun Stone. He had 4 tackles, 1 interception in the fourth quarter, which turned into yet another touchdown for Duke, and then one of the fumble recoveries in the first quarter. So, as you mentioned, Jason, our defense was all over the place. 12 tackles for loss. That's the 3rd game this year that we've had more than 10 tackles for loss. You equate that with some teams who haven't gotten to 20 all season, and we had 16 in the first game, and we've had double digits in 3 of the 4 games so far this season. It's been really, really cool, and I love that we're starting with the defense, because the defense really took it to the woodshed, and they were the reason why this game was so lopsided by the end of the first quarter. Jason, I did want to note for people, and I know you and I had similar or different ways of watching this game, as did everyone else out there. Of course, in the third quarter, with about 5:41 left, we have a lightning delay, and the lightning delay is an hour and 41 minutes long. And when you came back, the game that was on TV was no longer on TV. It was on ESPN Plus for like maybe 20 minutes. And then it went to a commercial break, and it never came back. This has happened before. I actually had to deal with this last week when Miami had a similar weather delay to start the game, and they made it to basically like the first play of the third quarter, and then all of a sudden ESPN Plus kind of cut off, and ACC Network said, "Oh, we're going to this other game." It's because they ran out of their time block, and somehow ESPN has not mastered the art of figuring out how to extend games beyond that time block on ESPN Plus. So if you got that commercial break mode for about an hour, it's because that time block that was originally scheduled for this game had expired, and with that, the stream kind of went bye-bye. So it's something they need to work on. It probably affected a lot of you out there watching the rest of this game. But I will say the great thing is it wasn't close, and we didn't have to worry about whether or not Duke was going to relinquish a lead that big entering the fourth quarter. But I really enjoyed how the defense came together, how the defense was really all over the place. You mentioned, I always love this, right? You mentioned that there were linebackers that were leading the cause when it comes to tackles. You don't want them to be your DBs, because that means guys are getting past your linebackers. No one was getting past their linebackers yesterday for the most part, so I thought that was really good.
Yeah, and let's switch to the offense for a moment. Look, Malik Murphy had another nice game, but wasn't super accurate at times. He's clearly still terrified to run with the ball. There was a play, I want to say it was in it was in the first quarter. We had the ball at like the 7-yard line, and he scrambled outside, and there was green in front of him. He could have run into the end zone, but he chose to throw it, and it was an incomplete pass instead. I was like, dude, just tuck it and run just one time. Give it a shot, man. I think you can get there.
I was thinking about this, and it didn't actually come up yesterday, but obviously watching the Eagles game, the Philadelphia Eagles game the other night with the tush push, like being so something that they always do with Jalen Hurts. I feel like that's something that Malik Murphy could do. And it's not a lot of pressure in that play because one, he's 6'5", 230, and he's going to have two, basically a tight end and a running back pushing him into the end zone after like 1 year, or pushing him for a first down. That maybe could get him some confidence, but also would make the defense have to think about him with the ball and how hard it would be to bring him down. And I know it's probably because he just doesn't want to do that, but I'm wondering if that's something that they deploy in certain situations as we move forward down the season.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's clear he's not going to be a guy who's going to take off and run very much. It's worth noting that after that play where I was like, you can just run with it, and he chose not to, that he threw a touchdown pass to Nicky Dalmolin, who had a hell of a game.
Yes.
On the very next play. Yeah, Nicky ends up with 4 receptions on this game. And Malik Murphy really moved the ball around a lot in this contest. Like, Keyshawn Brown had only 2 receptions this week after 11 last week. And one of those 2 receptions was one of those plays where it's like a wide receiver sweep kind of thing. And Malik Murphy tossed the ball forward to him, like a yard, not even. It counts as a pass, but it's really like a running play. It's really a handoff. But, like Jordan Moore only has 1 reception. It was a big touchdown throw, and Jordan Moore got behind the defense hugely. But we really move the ball around to a lot of different guys. It feels like Malik Murphy, I don't know that he has a favorite receiver right now. I would say on any given game, there are probably 4, maybe even 5 guys who could lead Duke in receiving, which I think makes us tougher to prepare for, because, by the way, those guys each represent different ways of getting the ball, to different players. I mean, Jordan Moore is going to stretch the field for you. Eli Pancol is more of a, crossing route kind of guy. Nicky Dalmolin's a big old tight end. And then you got, Keyshawn Brown, who's just a uber athlete. And, you get it to him and you let him scamper around in the backfield, in the defensive backfield, and it's trouble for the opposing team. A lot of different options there from Malik Murphy. And I just thought it was kind of interesting that, it felt like he's had a favorite each game. This game, I'm not sure he had any favorite.
Well, yeah, you take out the Dalmolin 71-yard touchdown, and they all are, as you mentioned, kind of around the same as far as number of catches and number of yards that they win for. Jordan Moore, he still has that pass streak, or that catch streak. I think it's up to 30 games at this point, but of course his 1 catch is a touchdown. So it's almost like between him and Pancol, you give him the ball and someone's going to score, which is really cool. Jason, I will say this. Entering, we're 4-0, right? The ACC current win streak record is at 6. Duke has 6. Duke is the one. Duke is has the longest winning streak so far in the ACC, 4-0, and I believe Manny Diaz becomes just the 4th Duke coach to start his career 4-0 at Duke. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to the team. Right before we get out of here and end this, Jason, I did want to note on offense. I think the one thing that I'm looking for is more of the run game to come about. Yes, Star Thomas did great. He had 111 yards, but it felt like everything else had to be worked hard for. It was a lot of it just felt like a grind. And sure, some of these games are going to do that, but you want to be able to make it where you're getting, as we mentioned, 4 or 5 yards every rush as opposed to 1 to 2, because that's just going to create so many more options for our attack. And again, with some of these deep balls that Malik Murphy likes to throw, he'll have more options to do that. He'll have more grace where if he goes on a 2nd down and 4 and try to run to throw deep, he has a couple of plays to kind of make up for it if you miss. So I'm looking for our running game to really get a little bit more. But again, I just love what we're doing on defense, and that really keeps us in ball games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had a few negatives in this game. I think it was tough to judge the offense too much because we had a short field so much of the time.
Right.
especially early on. And then obviously your game plan sort of changes when you scored 28 points in the first quarter. So I'm not sure we got a full look at the Duke offense in this game. It wasn't, it was great to see them bust out, as we said, to score more than the 26 points they've had in the first 3 games. But, in the negative column, we continue to struggle badly on third downs. Duke was just 3 of 10 on third downs. And like you said, we are missing Jaquez Moore in the rushing attack. There's no question about it. I mean, Star Thomas did okay. It was fine. But you can tell Duke's missing something. And I think part of it is Peyton Jones, who's the number 2 now that Jaquez Moore is out. Peyton Jones is just a true sophomore. He didn't redshirt as a freshman. And, he's just a little, frankly, college football these days is played by guys in their 3rd, 4th, and 5th year. He's only in his 2nd year. He's not a super physically imposing kind of guy. And I don't know if he's quite experienced enough. I think that Duke was planning on him being the number 3 running back. And when he got elevated, I don't know. I just haven't seen a lot from him to say that he's capable of the role, against big time opponents, of the role that we have him in. I don't know. I haven't really gotten any updates to hear when Jaquez Moore may be back.
I haven't either. I
haven't heard, but we haven't heard that he's out for the year. So
correct.
It'd be great to get him back for the Carolina game coming up. As Duke's stepping up in quality. Carolina's not that good.
We'll talk about that in a minute, Jason.
Right. But we are stepping up in quality from what we've had the first 4 games, and we're entering ACC play. And I do feel like the offense needs to figure out a way, get more short third downs that you can convert, and that run game does it. It just, it feels like it's still missing a little something. Honestly, Star Thomas has been fine if he was the number 2. I think it's that all these guys have gotten elevated one more spot more than they should be, and that's where Duke is having a little trouble.
Look, if Star Thomas is getting 111 yards rushing as the number 2 running back, then we don't have this conversation because we are just fine in the run game. Exactly. So let's be clear with that. But yes, I agree. I think just getting more oomph on those first down runs, and also, again, converting third downs is something that we need to work on. The thing about the ACC, as we get into break, the ACC has a lot of teams that we are going to be facing that can score a lot of points, even if they lose. That's your segue. I'm taking a break right now. On the other side, we have UNC come to town for homecoming for Centennial Weekend. What do we need to do to beat the Tar Heels and get the victory bell? More after this.
This is what you do when you've just found that statement handbag on eBay and you want to build an entire wardrobe around it. You start selling to keep buying. Yep, on eBay. Over that all-black everything phase? List it and buy all the color. Feeling more vintage than ever? It's out with the new and in with the pre-loved. Next thing you know, you've refreshed your wardrobe basically without spending a dime. Yeah, eBay, the place to buy and sell new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion.
Earning your degree online doesn't mean you have to go about it alone. At Capella University, we're here to support you when you're ready. From enrollment counselors who get to know you and your goals, to academic coaches who can help you form a plan to stay on track. We care about your success and are dedicated to helping you pursue your goals. Going back to school is a big step, but having support at every step of your academic journey can make a big difference. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
This episode is brought to you by AutoTrader. Look around. What do you see? Cars. Lots of them. And guess what? They're probably on AutoTrader. Whether you're into timeless classics or the latest trends, if you see it on the road, you can likely find it on AutoTrader. New, used, electric, and one day, maybe even flying cars. See a car? Find it on AutoTrader. Visit autotrader.com to learn more.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we turned our attention to Saturday, September 28th, 4 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN2. If you are not in Durham, turn on your TV at that time because it is the battle for the victory bell. Duke versus UNC. It's homecoming. It's Centennial Weekend. It's the big one. It's the one that we want. And Jason, when we approached this game, never did I think that we would get a headline about another game, but we did from William Parks. And that headline was as follows: Dukes destroy Heels. Not Duke, the Dukes. The James Madison Dukes beat UNC at Kenan Stadium 70-50. I sent you this, the halftime score, 53-21, and I sent you this, and you were like, and you and Sam were like, I don't believe this. It was true. And this game, we talk about this game because never did I think that James Madison would be a trap game for UNC before they come to Durham. That's not how this usually works in football, but here we are. But Jason, I use that to start with our preview of UNC. Give me a little bit on what you got on the Heels. We start at the quarterback position where they've had a couple of guys after Max Johnson, the regular starter, went out with a broken leg in their opener against Minnesota.
Yeah, but do me a favor. Before I get to that, I just want to dwell a little bit longer on set. Again, the score was 70-50. This is a basketball score. James Madison scored 70 points in the UNC football team. I'm telling you, if they played Carolina in basketball, I don't think James Madison gets to 70 points.
Jason, they mentioned this, I think, on the broadcast for them. 53 points at the half is what JMU scored. The last time UNC basketball gave up 53 points and a half was against Tennessee in the ACC SEC Challenge last year. So this is this is rare for football or basketball.
Yeah, they said the 70 points scored by James Madison is the most in that program's history. James Madison, by the way, is only in their third season as a FBS school. They were in the FCS. They were 1AA. They were only in their third season, and they beat Carolina 70-50. The brilliant, the incredibly hysterical, and very insightful and smart Ben Swain on Twitter. If you don't follow Ben Swain on Twitter, I don't know what you're doing.
Great follow.
Ben is amazing. He posted, he said, Duke is making a strong case as the best football team in the state. And then he posted a picture of a guy jumping over a high jump bar, and the high jump bar was basically at his knees.
Yeah. Low bar there. Low bar to climb.
Extremely low bar there to climb. UNC loses by 20 to James Madison. NC State gets hammered, just hammered by Clemson, 59-35. By the way, the score very deceptive. It was 59-14. Again, the score was 59-14. When Clemson called up to the stands, they had some frat boys come down and play defense for the fourth quarter because they'd gone through their second team and their third team and the walk-ons. And they were like, yeah, hey, anybody in the stands want to play defense here? And NC State scored on the frat boys. But that game was just an absolute joke. And Wake Forest, of course, is 1-2 on the season. The other big team in the state, Wake Forest, is 1-2 on the season. But they made headlines this week because they bought out of that contract with Ole Miss because they were basically non-competitive against Ole Miss. So, yeah, Duke is the best team in the state of North Carolina, I think, because the other three teams in the state are just terrible, terrible. And it's worth noting, the first thing to come out after this loss to James Madison was Mac Brown talking about whether or not he was going to resign. It is a problem for your program when your coach walks in the press conference and says, don't worry, I'm not resigning.
and didn't call in any of the players, right? None of the players were made available after that game. But Jason, I think it's even more indicative, the fact that, yes, they got blown out by James Madison at home, but they almost lost to Minnesota on the road in their first game. Yeah. They struggled quite a bit against Charlotte before they ended up winning 38-20. I think the only game where they looked, air quotes, good was against NC Central last week when they beat them 45-10.
By the way, they were down early in that game, and it was a competitive game. The Heels killed NC Central in the fourth quarter, but that was a competitive game. Yeah, I mean, this Carolina team has not looked good at all. And really quick, I'll let you go again, but I just want to I want to tell people a little more about this loss to James Madison. James Madison had more than 600 yards of total offense. They rushed for more than 220. They passed for almost 400. 600 yards of total offense. Carolina committed 5 turnovers. They had a punt block that got returned for a TD. By the way, Carolina also blocked a punt, returned it for a TD. What a crazy game. Both teams blocked punts for TDs. It was just a wild, wild game for James Madison to win 70-50. But Carolina is in a bad place right now.
It's incredible what we've seen from them so far this year. And again, they just, despite that, you look at their record and they go, oh, they're 3-1. What are they so worried about? They can put up a lot of points, but they can also, again, their defense just hasn't really done well. But Jason, before we get to defense, let's start with the offense. I mentioned the quarterbacks. You had Jacoby Criswell, who went for 475 yesterday against James Madison. But again, it's between him and Connor Harrell for like who's going to be the starter on Saturday with Max Johnson out.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, Max Johnson is a grad student who played a couple years at LSU, a couple years at Texas A&M. And that guy is a very solid quarterback. And that's what Carolina expected to have under center this year. And when he got injured in the opener against Minnesota, they have to fall back on someone else. And it looks like Criswell is going to be the guy because they were playing both Connor Harrell and Jacoby Criswell the past couple of weeks, but Connor Harrell didn't play at all against James Madison, and Criswell had a big game, as you mentioned, close to 500 yards passing in that game. He, by the way, it's worth noting, Criswell was a big time recruit when he came to UN. He was at UNC in 2020, I should say. And he was like a top 10, top 15 quarterback recruit in the country. He never really got a chance at Carolina. Like Drake May was there. They had other guys. He never really got much of a chance. And he eventually left and he transferred to Arkansas, which is where he's from originally. Barely played there, and then came back to UNC this year for his grad year.
Yep.
And it's kind of surprising, I think, that he's getting this much of a chance to play. He's absolutely a threat to run with the ball. What people should know is that this is a guy who can pass, but this is a guy who really likes to run with the ball as well. He had 8 carries against James Madison. And it's worth noting he had 2 interceptions that game against James Madison also. He's not necessarily someone who's going to protect the ball really, really well. They have issues at quarterback. And they're hoping that Criswell will solve them, but I don't think they're at all convinced yet that he's the guy.
Yeah, and again, I think going back and forth, they obviously Max Johnson goes out with a broken leg against Minnesota. They're trying to figure out what they want to do here, but again, even in the loss to JMU, Jacoby Criswell goes in, throws for 475 and 3 touchdowns. But Jason, I think the interesting thing about that game, and also with any others, is that they didn't have a 100-yard game from any of their receivers. So he's spreading the ball around to a ton of guys, and there's a lot of guys, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers who can get the football. And I think their idea is, let's see if we can get the ball into the hands of our best players and see if they do damage, whether it's through the run or through the air. Amarian Hampton, the running back, ran for 139 yards yesterday, but also he catches balls too. And he's one of the guys that will receive the ball sometimes in the flat and then try to use it as kind of like a bubble screen to kind of go downfield with yards after the catch. There's going to be a lot of guys who are going to get the football in their hands in several different ways. And I think that's the first challenging thing for Duke's defense, is they're going to have to figure out how to defend a lot of different sets where a lot of different guys will get the balls in different ways.
Well, you talk about their best guy. There's no question that Amari Hampton is their best guy. He is a load. Last year, he had 1,500 yards rushing and 15 TDs. I'm going to repeat that so folks hear it. Last season, this dude had 1,500 yards rushing and 15 TDs. Wow.
And he's past that pace this year, because right now he still has 555 yards and 6 touchdowns.
I was just going to say, yeah, he's doing even better so far this year. 555, 6 TDs. He's averaging 6.5 yards per carry. 6.5 yards per carry. And he's the kind of guy, he's physically built enough that he can run over you. But if he gets outside, he'll run past you. That is a big assignment for the Duke defense. We talked about the Duke linebackers. We cannot let Hampton run all over us. That is this game to me is a really interesting matchup because Carolina's strength is their offense. I mean, look, they lost to James Madison. They scored 50 points in the loss.
Right. That's what we need to worry about is I mentioned, even in losses, teams are still getting points, and that's a problem for any defense, even a defense that's performed as well as Duke has so far this year.
Yeah, I see this game as, the immovable object, which is the Duke defense against the unstoppable force, which is Hampton and the Carolina offense. And then on the other side of the ball, frankly, Duke's offense, I think, has been a little spotty in this year, but Carolina's defense is terrible. Again, they gave up 70 points to James Madison. That's all we need to tell you. And Carolina, for the past several years, this has been the book on them for several years now, that they're really good on offense and they're terrible, terrible on defense. It is worth noting, Jeff Sagarin has updated his rankings. We're recording on Sunday morning, but he's gotten all his Saturday data in. He says that UNC is the number 65 team in the land and that Duke is the number 66 team. They are right next to each other. This is a very, very close matchup. This is a game. This is the kind of game, if you want to make a bowl, if you want to, push your way up in the ACC standings, Carolina's the kind of team you have to beat. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying Duke. I haven't seen Vegas hasn't put out the lines yet, at least not that I've noticed. My bet is that Duke will be a 3.5 point pick because it's at Duke. But basically, this is a toss-up, a complete toss-up of a game. And I like us because I think a good defense is better able to stop a good offense versus, a good offense being able to get stuff on a good defense. I prefer defense to offense. So that's why I like Duke, but it's going to be a close game and a really big game for the Devils.
And all of these games are always close, right? Even last year, that stupid game that we played against them that went to double overtime.
God, yeah.
A dumb game. I hated that game, but I also hated it because we played well enough to win. We played well enough to get the bell, and we just fell short in double overtime of all things. So we obviously don't want to get to double overtime, but to do that, I think, again, the defense, the way they've been playing, penetrating the backfield and getting tackles for loss, that should continue. They're going to have a lot of opportunities to do so. If they can stop Hampton, keep them under 100 yards, UNC has to scramble. And I think when UNC has to scramble, that's when they turn easy plays into interceptions. Like they'll turn the ball over, they will make mistakes, and we can capitalize on it. On the other side, we mentioned it in our recap for Middle Tennessee. Our run game needs to get going too. Star Thomas can't be the only one getting the bulk of the yards, and it's not necessarily I'm not necessarily sending a shot across the bow at Peyton Jones and the rest of them, but I am saying let's get that into gear because that's going to make everything so much easier on offense. And I feel like third down conversions, if we can keep moving the chains down the field, that will tire out an already tired out defense who was used to seeing teams march down the field on them, and we can get a lot of points. And I think the final thing, the fact that this is homecoming, the fact that we're going to have so many alums back on campus, it won't be that 70-30, 80-20 UNC crowd that likes to dominate when UNC comes to town. It's going to be closer to 50-50, and hopefully there are more Duke fans in Duke blue than there is in that other blue. But I think the momentum is going to be a huge factor in this game. If we can keep making big plays, exciting plays, our fans are going to be energized. That will energize this team to keep moving. And again, they'll get to paint that bell on the field, hopefully, when the clock strikes 0.
Yeah, I think you mentioned third down. I think that's going to be a huge key in this game. We have seen Duke struggle so much on like this Duke team can barely get to 30% third down conversions on this season. And we just, I want to see a lot of 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3s, and not many 3rd and 5, 7, 8 yards.
Mm-hmm.
If Duke gets that third down conversion percentage up to 40% or so, they're going to win this game. I'm telling you right now. And that's just a huge, huge key I'm going to be looking at. It is worth noting, by the way, Donald, last note on football before we go. There are only 3 undefeated teams right now in the ACC. 3 teams, Pitt and Miami and Duke. All we could do from our first 4 games, those 4 non-conference games, was win them. And Duke has done that. We put ourselves in position to have a nice ACC season to surprise people, because a lot of people don't think this Duke team is making a bowl game.
We were picked 11th, and 11th teams who are 11th in the conference don't go to bowl games. So just putting that out there.
Right. 2 more wins and we'll be bowling. And I really think it starts against Carolina, because this is one of the more winnable games. The ACC, not that it's a super tough conference, but there's some teams that are showing some things in this league. And Duke's schedule, unfortunately, we mostly have to play all those teams. So yeah, big chance this week against Carolina.
Hey, as my best friend said last week, every game is winnable on our schedule based on our opponents. Every game is losable based on what we do or don't do. So let's do the things that we need to do, and let's get out of there with a victory on Saturday. Jason, before we get out of here, obviously we've talked a lot about the Dribble for Victory Over Cancer that's coming up on October 5th. You will be there, also be there for Countdown to Craziness. And we've gotten a lot of donations so far in for our team. We're going to, again, put that in the show notes. But Jason, yeah, I know you want to shout out a couple people who had emailed us or talked to us about them participating in the Dribble for Victory over cancer.
Yeah, all of it is public. By the way, whenever you give, it is noted on our page. Go to
Unless you make it anonymous. You can, I know there's an
right.
option for that, but yes, we can see you and we appreciate you.
Right. You can make it anonymous. Thank you to the folks who are making it anonymous, but thank you to the people who make it public. And I'm going to shout out a couple of them in a moment, but just so folks have the URL, it's tinyurl.com/Duke Dribble, capital D, capital D, capital D for Duke, capital D for Dribble, tinyurl.com/Duke Dribble. And it'll take you to our page where you can donate for the Dribble for Victory. And so far, we've had 21 different people make donations through the DBR podcast. We are so thrilled that people are taking part in it in that kind of way. Paul Sellers, man, tip of the cap, $1,500 by Paul.
I'm sorry, what?
$1,500 by Paul Sellers. By the way, he gets a John Shire signed jersey for doing $1,500. On our page, it lists all the different things you get for the size of your donation. Paul's getting a $1,500 John Shire jersey. Nice job, Paul. Gloria Jones and Bud Reeves each gave $500. They're going to get a ball, a basketball, a Duke basketball, a Duke hat, and a chance to win 4 tickets to a Duke basketball game. Bunch of other folks giving between like $25 and $150. I love that people are engaged by this and that they're reaching out and doing the right thing for a incredibly important cause. Pediatric cancer, come on. I mean, I'm struggling to think of something that more deserves a donation than the cause of fighting pediatric cancer. Cancer is a bitch. I don't need to tell the stories. Everyone has them. They exist in my family. They exist in every family. But pediatric cancer, come on. We need to fight that. And this is a great way to do it. Duke is getting very close. Duke's goal was $75,000. I think they're up around 60 something, 61,000.
Yeah, I think it was 62 or in change last I checked, but yeah.
Yeah, they're getting really close. 75,000 ain't nothing, people. Let's get us there. Let's get well over $75,000 raised for this, and go to tinyurl.com/Duke Dribble and make your donation through the DBR portal that we have there. Be a part of our team, and I'll continue shouting people out as they do this. And again, I'm going to be there on the 5th. I will figure out a way to say hi to everybody. Anyone who wants to meet me, there'll probably be people there who are like, oh, there's that Jason dude. I don't want to talk to him, but
Jason, you need to remind me. I haven't done my donation yet because I'm still at, like you were, trying to figure out what level I'm trying to get at. It will not be $1,500, unfortunately. I wish I could say that, but that's incredible generosity. But ladies and gentlemen, if it's $1,500, if it's 15 cents, it does not matter. It all goes to a great cause. Make your donations now. tinyurl.com/Duke Dribble. Jason, I think that will do it for this episode of DBR Bites. We'll be back again. We're going to try to come back at some point after the schedule is released on Tuesday. Hopefully we will have it to you on Wednesday morning. Jason and I just have to align our lives to make that possible, but we are obviously going to recap and break down the entire schedule for Duke basketball as it comes out. So until then, for Jason Evans, I am Donald Blind. This has been the DBR Bites of the Duke Basketball Roundup, and now it's time for the Duke band to play us out and take us home.